The smell of burnt toast and betrayal hung in the air. That's how my weekend started. My name is Violet. I'm 34, and for the last decade, I've been the designated problem solver for my husband's family. It's a job with no pay, no holidays, and a whole lot of emotional baggage. The call came at 8 a.m. on a Saturday I had foolishly planned to spend in bed. It was my sister in law, Serenity. Vi, you're a lifesaver, she'd chirped, the sound of an airport announcement echoing behind her. We've had the most awful luck. Our flight to Miami was canceled, and the only one they could rebook us on is tomorrow morning. You don't mind keeping the kids an extra night, do you? I looked around my living room, which had been transformed into a war zone of Lego bricks, half eaten apple slices, and glitter glue. Her three children, Sarah, 13, Scott, 10, and Layla, 7, were supposed to have been picked up an hour ago. My husband, Kai, had already left for his Saturday morning golf game, leaving me to handle the handover. Oh, was all I could manage. Okay, Serenity, no problem. Knew you'd understand. You're the best. Click. She didn't miss her flight. She never does. Serenity, at 38, has weaponized incompetence into an art form. She and her husband, Grayson, get stuck in traffic, their phones die at convenient moments, and flights get canceled whenever they want an extra day of freedom. And I, the reliable one, am always there to pick up the pieces. When Kai got home that evening, smelling of cut grass and clubhouse beer, he found me scrubbing a juice stain out of the rug while Layla slept on my lap. Rough day? He asked, dropping his keys on the counter. They missed their flight, I said, my voice flat. They're staying another night. He winced. Ah, well, it happens. I finally looked up at him. Kai, can we please have next weekend to ourselves? Just us. No last minute babysitting, no family dinners. I need a break. He avoided my eyes, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. Come on, Vi. You know how Serenity gets. It's just easier to help out than to deal with the drama if we say no. He gave me that familiar, placating smile. It's just what family does. The next day, Serenity and Grayson finally arrived, looking tanned and relaxed. As her kids swarmed her with hugs, Serenity handed me a crumpled $20 bill. For pizza, she said with a dismissive wave. I pushed it back into her hand. It's fine. Don't be silly, she insisted, her voice loud enough for Kai to hear. We couldn't have done it without you. Later that week, I was on the phone with her, trying to coordinate a pickup time for a school fundraiser packet. I was tired. The kind of tired that settles deep in your bones, a permanent exhaustion from juggling my part time job, our home, and the constant unspoken demands of his family. I'm just feeling a little burnt out, I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. It was a mistake, a moment of vulnerability I knew I'd pay for. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then she laughed. It wasn't a kind, sympathetic chuckle, it was a sharp, incredulous bark of a laugh full of condescension. Burned out? From what? She scoffed. You don't even have kids. Take a nap if you're tired. Or join a yoga cult or something. I felt the blood drain from my face. All the years of canceled plans, last minute calls, and thankless favors coalesced into a single, cold point of clarity. She didn't see me as family. She saw me as staff. I said nothing, just a quiet, okay, Serenity, I'll see you Thursday. The following week, she made her grand announcement. She cornered me at their father's Sunday dinner, a triumphant gleam in her eye. Grayson and I are going away for our anniversary next weekend, she declared. We booked a suite at the Hillsford Luxury Lodge, 3 whole days. You're a doll for watching the kids. It's the only way we could possibly make it work. She didn't ask. She informed. Then she pushed a thick folder into my hands. Inside was a color coded, laminated schedule for each child, complete with dietary restrictions, screen time limits, and a list of emergency contacts that had my name at the top in bold, highlighted letters. Kai was standing right there, nodding along. Of course, Serenity. We're happy to help. I looked from his conflict avoidant face to her smug one. The laughter from our phone call echoed in my ears. Take a nap or join a yoga cult. Something inside me didn't just break, it vaporized. I smiled, a sweet, accommodating smile that didn't reach my eyes. Don't worry about a thing, I said, my voice smooth as glass. You two deserve a break. Have a wonderful time. She beamed, completely oblivious. But as she walked away, I clutched that folder in my hand and felt a plan begin to form. A quiet, simple, and utterly devastating plan. Oh, I was going to take a break. All right. Just not the one she had in mind. The first thing I did Monday morning was open my laptop. The Hillsford Luxury Lodge website was all muted earth tones and pictures of serene looking people in fluffy white robes. It was a world away from my glitter glue stained living room. I found their spa packages, my heart thumping a nervous rhythm against my ribs. The Solo Serenity Suite was their most exclusive offering: private entrance, personal hot tub, unlimited treatments. It was obscenely expensive. Then I navigated to the checkout page. There was a little box labeled promo or group code. I remembered Serenity bragging at Christmas about the Shaw family discount they got through Grayson's corporate partnerships. On a whim, I typed in Shaw family. A green check mark appeared, and the price dropped by a staggering 30%. It was still a fortune, more than I'd ever spent on myself in one go, but the sheer audacity of it made me grin. Using their privilege against them felt like the perfect appetizer. I clicked confirm booking. The small, satisfying click of the mouse felt like a gunshot signaling the start of a race. On Wednesday, my cousin in law, Mara, stopped by. At 35, Mara was the quiet observer of the family, the one who saw everything but rarely spoke up. She found me cleaning out my closet, a task I'd been putting off for years. Getting a head start on spring cleaning? She asked, leaning against the doorframe. Something like that, I said, folding a sweater I hadn't worn since my 20s. You seem different, she said, her brow furrowed. Usually, by this point in the week before a Serenity weekend, you're a walking ball of stress, pre cooking casseroles and triple checking her ridiculous schedule. I paused, turning to face her. The old me would have given a tired smile and a self deprecating shrug. The new me simply said, Oh, I'm finally going to relax this weekend. Mara's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't press. She just nodded slowly. Good, you deserve it. After she left, the memories came flooding back, a bitter tide of a decade's worth of being the family shock absorber. I remembered our fifth wedding anniversary. I'd booked a table at the restaurant where Kai and I had our first date. An hour before we were supposed to leave, Serenity called in a panic. Scott had a fever. Grayson was stuck in a meeting, and she needed me to come over. When I hesitated, Kai had put his hand on my arm. It's just dinner, Vi. We can go any time. This is an emergency. We never rescheduled. Then there was my father in law, Ken's 60th birthday party. I'd spent the entire day in their kitchen, refilling drinks and plating food, while Serenity flitted around accepting compliments on her party. At one point, Ken clapped me on the shoulder as I cleared away a tray of empty glasses. Good to see a woman who knows her place is in the background, making sure things run smoothly. He'd boomed, oblivious to the sting of his words. Kai had just laughed along with him. Each memory was a brick in the wall I had built around myself, a wall of compliance and quiet resentment. Serenity's laughter on the phone hadn't been a stray stone. It was the wrecking ball that finally brought the whole thing down. Friday morning arrived, crisp and clear. My bag was already in the car. My phone, which was usually glued to my hand awaiting instructions, sat face down on the kitchen counter. At precisely 7 a.m., it began to vibrate. The screen lit up with a picture of Serenity, her smile wide and demanding. I watched it buzz, the sound an angry insect trapped under glass. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then fell silent. A moment later, it buzzed again. And again, I let every call go to voicemail. 2 hours later, I was miles away. The air in the Hillsford Lodge lobby smelled of eucalyptus and quiet money. A soft chime played in the background. I sat in a plush armchair, a flute of complimentary champagne fizzing delicately in my hand. The robe they'd given me at check in was so soft it felt like a cloud. I picked up my phone. 7 missed calls from Serenity. 3 from Kai, a string of increasingly frantic texts. Serenity. Where are you? I'm dropping the kids off in 30. Serenity. Vi, not funny. Pick up the phone. Serenity. Violet, I am sitting in your driveway. Where the hell are you? Kai. Hey, Serenity can't find you. Everything okay? Kai. Violet, call me back. Now. I read them all, a strange sense of calm washing over me. It was like watching a storm from behind a thick pane of glass. I took a slow sip of my champagne, the cool bubbles a perfect contrast to the fire of rebellion burning in my chest. I silenced my phone, placed it back on the table, and leaned back, finally, exquisitely, at peace. My first treatment was a seaweed wrap. As a woman cocooned me in warm, mineral rich algae, I thought about serenity, probably wrapped in a metaphorical cocoon of her own making, frantically calling every teenager in her phone's contact list. Then came the hot stone massage. The therapist placed smooth, heated stones along my spine, their weight and warmth melting away years of tension. With every knot she worked out of my shoulders, I imagined Serenity's jaw getting tighter, her voice getting shriller. It was the most relaxing afternoon of my life. Later, I floated down to the spa reception desk to book a facial for the next morning. The desk clerk, a young woman with vibrant pink hair and a name tag that read Kira, tapped at her computer with long, glittery nails. Absolutely, she chirped. We can fit you in at 10. You are having the full Hillsford experience, aren't you? She winked. Good for you. Some people come here and bring all their stress with them. She leaned in conspiratorially. You would not believe the call I just had. A couple, the Shaws had to cancel their 9 a.m. couples massage yesterday because of a childcare emergency. Now they're demanding we squeeze them in today. The woman sounded like she was about to pop a blood vessel. I kept my expression placid. Oh, that's a shame. Right? Like, ma'am, this is a place of zen. Please leave your frantic energy at the door, Kira said, rolling her eyes dramatically before her professional smile snapped back into place. Anyway, your 10 a.m. Facial is all set. That evening, after a solitary dinner of seared scallops and a glass of crisp Sauvignon Blanc, I finally allowed myself to check on the digital fallout. I opened Instagram first. Serenity, a prolific poster, hadn't uploaded a single story or photo since a smug shot of her luggage in the hallway on Friday morning, captioned, Anniversary weekend. Here we come. Someone's getting spoiled. After that, radio silence. The narrative had clearly gone off script. Then I looked at my phone's lock screen. A dozen new texts and 5 more missed calls. Most were from Kai. Kai, Violet, this isn't funny. Serenity had to call her dad to come watch the kids. He's 62, he can't handle them for a whole weekend. Kai, she's in tears. Her anniversary is ruined. Kai, pick up the damn phone. I bypassed the texts and went straight to the most recent voicemail, left an hour ago. I pressed play, holding the phone to my ear. Kai's voice was low and tight with a fury I hadn't heard in years. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Violet, but it stops now. You've made a fool of my sister. You've made a fool of me. You're embarrassing the family. Whatever point you think you're making, you've made it. Now call me back and tell me where you are. Embarrassing the family. Not, are you okay? Not. What's going on? The family's image, as always, was his primary concern. I deleted the voicemail without a second thought. The next morning, I woke up with the sun. I ordered room service, a beautiful tray of fresh fruit, pastries, and a pot of coffee, and took a picture of it against the backdrop of the misty hills outside my window. It was a perfect shot, serene and luxurious. I posted it to my Instagram feed, a rare occurrence for me. I tagged the location, the Hillsford Luxury Lodge, and I added a simple caption, finally taking that nap. I knew she'd see it. Her entire self worth was tied to social media. She'd be hate scrolling my profile, looking for clues. Now she had one. I spent the next hour in the private hot tub, letting the steam and the silence wash over me. At 1:45 p.m., I made my way down to the main spa lobby for my 2 p.m. deep tissue massage. I was sitting in a plush armchair, sipping cucumber infused water, when the glass doors to the spa burst open. In stormed serenity, her hair a frazzled mess, her face blotchy and furious. Grayson trailed behind her, looking utterly defeated. She was dressed in expensive athleisure wear that was rumpled and stained, a stark contrast to the pristine white robes of the other guests. She marched toward the reception desk, ready to unleash hell on poor Kira, and then she saw me. Her entire body went rigid. Her mouth fell open. The torrent of angry words she had prepared died on her lips. She just stood there, frozen in the middle of the tranquil lobby, staring at me as if I were a ghost in a fluffy white robe holding a glass of cucumber water, with not a single care in the world. The silence in the spa lobby stretched for a full 10 seconds, thick and suffocating. Every head had turned. The soft chime music seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the sound of Serenity's ragged breathing. Her face cycled through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and finally a deep, volcanic rage. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper that carried across the room. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my cucumber water before setting the glass down. I looked her directly in the eye. "I'm on vacation." Her face contorted. "You can't be here. This is my weekend, my anniversary. You were supposed to be watching the kids." "Things change," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. That was the spark. She exploded. "How dare you!" she shrieked, taking a step forward. "You're ruining everything, everything! Do you have any idea what I've been through for the last 24 hours? Dad can't even figure out how to work the streaming services." I leaned back in my chair, a picture of tranquility. "Oh, I'm finally on vacation. Just like you." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You told me I should take a nap. This is a very nice place for a nap." Her jaw dropped. The direct quote, thrown back at her so placidly, seemed to short circuit her brain. Other guests were now openly staring, whispering behind their hands. Kira materialized at Serenity's elbow, her professional smile plastered on her face, but her eyes hard as steel. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" "This is a quiet relaxation area." "My problem," Serenity snarled, pointing a trembling finger at me, "is that my sister in law, who was supposed to be my babysitter, is here pretending she belongs." I saw Grayson flinch at the word babysitter. He took a step forward and put a hand on Serenity's arm. "Serenity, stop. Not here." She shook him off. "No. She needs to leave. She's doing this on purpose to destroy our anniversary." That's when I saw it. The subtle, almost imperceptible eye roll from Grayson. He wasn't angry with me. He was mortified by her. He wasn't a co conspirator in this fight. He was a hostage. "Ma'am," Kira said, her voice firmer now as another staff member came to stand beside her, "I'm going to have to ask you to resolve this outside. You are disturbing our other guests." The public humiliation was finally sinking in. Serenity's face flushed a deep, mottled red. She looked from the stern faces of the staff to the curious eyes of the other patrons, and then back to me, sitting there unmoved. She had lost control of the narrative, and she knew it. "Fine," she spat, grabbing Grayson's wrist. "We're leaving." She shot me one last look, full of pure hatred. "You'll be hearing from Kai." Then they were gone, storming out the glass doors as quickly as they had entered, leaving a wake of stunned silence. A moment later, a therapist with a kind face appeared in the doorway. "Violet Richards?" I stood up, smoothed down my robe, and gave Kira a small, appreciative nod. She gave me a tiny, almost invisible wink in return. I followed the therapist down a quiet hallway, the chaos of the lobby already fading away. As she worked the deep, aching knots from my back, I didn't feel guilt or regret. I just felt quiet. That night, the phone calls started. Kai's name flashed on my screen at 8:03 p.m. I ignored it. It flashed again at 8:05 and 8:15 and 8:30. He tried a dozen times, the calls relentless, each one a small, buzzing demand for my attention. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I decided to get it over with. I let the phone ring once, twice, and then answered. I didn't even have a chance to say hello. What the hell is wrong with you? He roared, his voice raw with anger. Serenity is a wreck, Violet. A complete wreck. She's been crying for hours. She thinks Grayson is going to leave her over the scene you caused. Is that what you wanted? To sabotage my sister's marriage? I held the phone slightly away from my ear, listening to his tirade. The accusation was so absurd, so perfectly in line with his family's talent for twisting reality, that I almost laughed. I caused a scene? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. I was sitting in a chair, Kai. Serenity was the one screaming. Because you ambushed her! You went to the same resort to taunt her. It was a cruel, calculated thing to do. She told me to take a nap, I said simply. I took her advice. This isn't a joke, Violet. This is my family. And what am I? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and unanswered. He didn't have an answer. He just sighed, a long, weary sound of frustration. Just come home, he said, his anger deflating into exhaustion. We'll sort this out. But I knew what sorting this out meant. It meant me apologizing. It meant me smoothing things over, reassuring Serenity, and accepting the blame to restore the family's delicate, dysfunctional peace. No, I said. My booking is until tomorrow afternoon. I'll be home then. I hung up before he could argue. I returned home to a house that was eerily silent. Kai was there, but he wasn't. He moved around me with a stiff, resentful energy, his words clipped and formal. The fallout had begun, and I was at the epicenter. Serenity had wasted no time. The family narrative was set. I was the cold, vindictive saboteur, and she was the heartbroken victim of my inexplicable cruelty. Kai, true to form, had absorbed his sister's version of events completely. You went too far, Vi, he said that evening, standing in the doorway of the kitchen as I unpacked my bag. There were other ways to make your point. I tried other ways, I countered, my back to him. For 10 years I tried. No one was listening. He didn't have a response for that. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I almost didn't recognize. It was Mara. Mara. Heard about the spa. Are you okay? It was the first time anyone had asked me that. Me. I'm fine. Just navigating the Imperial fleet. Mara. Can I call? We spoke for over an hour. I expected a lecture, or at least a gentle suggestion that I should apologize for the sake of family harmony. Instead, I got something else entirely. I was there, she said quietly, after I'd given her the unvarnished version of events. What? At the spa, my friend and I had a girls' day booked. We were in the waiting area when Serenity came in. We saw the whole thing. I was speechless. It wasn't a coincidence I was willing to accept, but a small, interconnected world I had forgotten. Mara and Serenity ran in similar circles. It was plausible. You were calm, Mara continued, a note of admiration in her voice. She was completely unhinged. You just sat there. I've never seen anyone stand up to her like that. Honestly, I'm glad someone finally said no. The relief that washed over me was so profound it almost brought me to tears. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain. Someone else had seen it. She's been doing this for years, Vi, Mara said, her voice dropping. To everyone. Using people until they're exhausted and then acting like they're the ones with the problem. We all just let her. It's easier. But it's not right. Women in this family are expected to carry all the emotional labor, and if we stumble, we're the ones who get blamed for dropping it. She was right. It was a truth I had felt in my bones for years, but had never been able to articulate. Be careful, though, Mara warned, her tone shifting. Once you say no, they never see you the same again. You're not reliable Violet anymore. You're difficult Violet. They'll close ranks. Her prediction came true sooner than I expected. The following week, I saw a picture on my father in law's social media page. It was the whole Richards clan: Ken, Kai, Serenity, Grayson, their kids, all smiling at a barbecue. The caption read, "Nothing better than family time." I hadn't been invited. I zoomed in on the photo. Kai was there, a strained smile on his face, his arm slung around his sister's shoulders. He was standing with them, and I was standing alone. A group text from Serenity arrived a few minutes later, clearly sent to a family thread that no longer included my number. It was a picture of the same barbecue with a saccharine message, so grateful for a family that sticks together through thick and thin. The message was clear. The smear campaign was in full swing, and I was officially on the outside. The first thing I did was find a therapist, a woman with a kind face and a no nonsense attitude who, after I laid out the whole story, simply nodded and said, "So, you've stopped setting yourself on fire to keep them warm? Good. Now, let's talk about what to do with all this newfound light." The second thing I did was call my own mother. I'd let my relationship with my birth family wither over the years, always too busy catering to the Richards' endless needs. My mom didn't ask questions. She just heard the catch in my voice and said, "Come for dinner on Sunday. Your sister will be here." It felt like coming home. The silence in my actual house stretched from days into a week, then two. Kai moved his pillows and a blanket into the guest room. There was no big fight, no dramatic scene, just a quiet, mutual retreat to opposite ends of the house. One night, I found him in the kitchen making a sandwich, and I decided to say what we were both thinking. "I'm not going to be the family doormat anymore, Kai." He stopped, his back to me, the knife still in his hand. He didn't turn around. He just stood there for a long moment before finally saying, "Nobody asked you to be." His silence on the matter, his refusal to even acknowledge the decade of pressure and expectation, said everything. He wasn't my partner in this. He was their son. An obligatory invitation to his aunt's birthday dinner arrived via text. I knew it was a trap, but I also knew not going would be used as further proof of my difficult nature. I went. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. Ken, my father in law, made a loud toast to family loyalty, staring directly at me. Another cousin patted Kai on the shoulder and said, "Hang in there, man," as if he were the one being wronged. Serenity, across the table, held court, looking fragile and wronged, never once making eye contact with me. I ate my salad, endured the passive aggressive barbs for exactly 45 minutes, and then I stood up. "It was lovely seeing you all," I said to the table at large. "Kai, I'm getting a ride home." I walked out the front door and into the cool night air without looking back. I was halfway down the block when a car pulled up beside me. It was Mara. She rolled down the window. "Get in." I slid into the passenger seat, and she just drove for a few minutes in silence. "That was brutal," she finally said. "I'm getting used to it." She shook her head, pulling over to the side of a quiet street. "You don't get it, Vi. They're not mad because you were selfish. They're scared. They're scared of needing you and not being able to control you. You were the engine that made their whole dysfunctional machine run, and you just walked away from the controls." Her words hit me with the force of a physical blow. She was right. My utility had been mistaken for love for so long that I'd started to believe it myself. "Thank you, Mara," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "for seeing it, for seeing me." "Always," she said, squeezing my shoulder. We drove the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. When I got home, the house was dark. Kai wasn't back yet. I went to bed, feeling more alone than ever, but also strangely peaceful. The next evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello?" There was a pause, then a man's voice, hesitant and low. "Violet? It's Grayson?" I froze, my hand tightening on the phone. I braced myself for a wave of anger, for accusations, for a demand that I fix what I'd broken. Instead, his voice was just tired. "Listen," he said, and it sounded like he was hiding in a closet or a pantry. I just, I wanted to say, Serenity knew what she was doing. With the babysitting, with everything. She's always done it." He took a shaky breath. "We both did. We knew you'd say yes. We always counted on it. What you did at the spa, I'm not saying it was right, but I get it. That's all." And then he hung up. I held the phone in my hand long after Grayson disconnected, his confession echoing in the silent house. We both did. It wasn't just Serenity's entitlement, it was a systemic rot, an unspoken agreement that my time, my energy, my life was a resource to be consumed. And Kai had stood by and let it happen. When he finally came home an hour later, I was waiting for him in the living room. I didn't turn on the lights, I just sat there in the dark. We need to talk, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. He flicked on a lamp, blinking in the sudden brightness. He looked exhausted, the lines around his eyes deeper than I'd ever seen them. Violet, I'm not in the mood for another fight. This isn't a fight, I said, my tone even. It's a reckoning. For 10 years, I have twisted myself into knots for your family. I have been your sister's on call nanny, your father's quiet servant, the family's unpaid event planner. And every single time I tried to set a boundary, every time I asked for a single weekend for us, you told me it was easier to just keep the peace. You never stood up for me, Kai. Not once. He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. Grayson called me. He admitted that he and Serenity have been knowingly taking advantage of me for years. They counted on me saying yes, and you let them. Kai's face paled. The mention of Grayson's call had clearly caught him off guard. He sank onto the opposite end of the sofa, running a hand over his face. I I didn't know he'd do that. It doesn't matter, I said. You knew the truth. You just didn't want to deal with the drama of acknowledging it. Your comfort was more important than my well-being. The air crackled with the weight of a decade of unspoken truths. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a helpless sort of sorrow. So what now? Are you leaving me? The question was so simple, yet the answer was impossibly complex. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I am choosing peace. I am choosing myself. If that peace can't include you, then yes, I will leave. The final confrontation happened, as it always did, at Ken's house for Sunday dinner. The family had been summoned under some vague pretense. Serenity, emboldened by weeks of playing the victim, must have sensed a shift in the power dynamic. She brought up Grayson's call. I can't believe he would call you and lie like that, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, her voice trembling for effect. He's just so stressed he doesn't know what he's saying. He would never admit to something that wasn't true. Ken grunted in agreement. The boy's been under a lot of pressure. Violet, you should know better than to take a man's stressed out ramblings as gospel. I said nothing. I just looked at Kai, waiting. This was his moment. He could side with them, smooth things over, and our marriage would die a quiet death right there at the dinner table. Or he could finally, for the first time, choose me. And that's when Mara, who had been silent until now, spoke up. He wasn't lying, Serenity. Her voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute certainty. Everyone turned to look at her. What? Serenity snapped. I called Grayson after I heard he'd spoken to Violet, Mara said, her gaze unwavering. I asked him point blank if it was true. He said yes. He said you both knew exactly what you were doing, and he was sorry for his part in it. The color drained from Serenity's face. She stared at Mara, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She had been so used to controlling the narrative, to having her version of reality accepted without question, that she had no defense against a direct, factual contradiction from within her own ranks. She looked desperately toward Kai, her last and most reliable ally. Kai, tell her that's not true. Kai looked at his sister, then at me, then at the expectant faces around the table. He took a deep breath, and the passive, conflict avoidant man I had been married to for 10 years seemed to vanish. No, he said, his voice clear and firm. I'm not going to do that anymore. A collective gasp went through the room. The power dynamic didn't just break, it shattered. Serenity stared at him, utterly betrayed. Ken looked thunderstruck. I stood up from the table. I didn't need to say another word. I had laid my truth bare, and for the first time, it hadn't been buried under the weight of their expectations. I walked out of the house, leaving the wreckage of their family drama behind me. As the front door clicked shut, I felt a lightness in my chest I hadn't realized was missing. It felt like breathing after being held underwater for a very, very long time. My life had just been reset to zero, and the path forward was, for the first time, entirely my own. The conversation with Kai a few weeks after that dinner was quiet and sad, devoid of the anger that had fueled us for so long. There was no single moment of betrayal left to dissect, only the slow erosion of a decade. He packed his bags and moved out, not to his father's house, but to a small apartment across town. It wasn't an act of animosity, but one of necessity. We both needed space to figure out who we were without the crushing weight of his family's expectations. I found a small apartment with a balcony overlooking a park. The process of separating our lives was methodical and strangely painless. We divided furniture, books, and kitchen gadgets with a polite detachment that felt more like the dissolution of a business partnership than a marriage. The house we had shared sold quickly. My new place was mine in a way our old house never had been. I painted the walls a soft green, bought a ridiculously comfortable armchair just for myself, and filled the space with plants and art that I loved. It was small and it was simple, but it was a sanctuary. Mara helped me move in, hauling boxes and ordering pizza, our friendship solidifying in the shared work. One evening, as I was watering a new fern on my balcony, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew who it was from. Serenity. I hope you're happy. Everything feels broken because of you. I read the words, a familiar knot of guilt trying to form in my stomach. The old Violet would have agonized over that message. She would have typed and deleted a dozen apologetic replies, desperate to smooth things over, to take the blame, to fix what she had supposedly broken. But I wasn't her anymore. I looked at her message, at the desperate final attempt to pull me back into her orbit of blame and responsibility. I saw it for what it was, not an accusation, but a confession. She was admitting that without me to manage her life and absorb her chaos, her world was falling apart. The machine had stopped running. I didn't reply. I didn't block her number. I simply set my phone down. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, listening to the distant sounds of laughter from the park below. I picked up my phone again, but instead of texting her back, I opened my camera. I took a picture of the sunset filtering through the leaves of my plants, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and orange. It was a picture of pure, unadulterated peace. I posted it online with a simple caption: Serenity at last. The double meaning was for me a private joke that sealed the end of an era. The real revenge wasn't the spa weekend, that was just the catalyst, the loud, flashy explosion that cleared the way. The real revenge was this quiet moment. It was building a life where her calls went unanswered, where her demands met only silence, where her drama had no audience. It was becoming untouchable. I smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. I had spent so long trying to earn a place in a family that saw me as a function, not a person. I had contorted myself to fit into a space that was never meant for me. Now, in my own small apartment, surrounded by my own things, I finally understood. They taught me I owed them. Now I owe myself.